So what I like to do here is think of this screen as our whole entire page itself, not necessarily just storyline. My aspect ratio that I like to keep is 4:3. If you're not familiar with aspect ratios and sizes and things, that's something that you can go ahead and Google and look at. One of the other things that I haven't considered for this that I may want to do too is create like a patterned background, which will give the project a little bit more depth. But we'll talk a little bit more about like the actual like UI design and the visual components of that later. For now, let's just stick with shapes. So when I design a project, I like to focus on the shapes first. So I'm going to go ahead and start to draw out what this stage is going to look like. So we're going to keep in mind everything outside of this box is going to be just basically the background itself. And we may have a little bit more background to work with then too. And then I can align things. And for this, because you'll see up here, I'm going to use a similar style to my playlist. We have a lot of like rounded edges and rounded corners. So what I'm going to do with this is also have like that rounded edge, rounded corner feel to it. Come back down here. And if I wanted to pop off the stage a little bit more, so that it looks like there's a little more depth, I don't know how far I want to go with this. We can always adjust it later. So if I want there to be a little more depth, I'll add a shadow background to this, and that will give us a little bit more depth. So something that I might do is open one of my previous projects so I can see what the shadow looks like. So I have that on my video playlist one. And I have a modal that slides off that has a really kind of pretty good shadow on it. So this little one. It's like not really a modal, it's like more feedback. But we can go ahead and use this for reference. So I've got the y-axis as 6 and the blur as 6. So just change this to 6. And then I don't want to border around it because I want it to look pretty slick. I don't know if I like that either though. Sometimes you just have to play around with things to see, oh god, no, that's terrible. Okay, to see like what's gonna look best. I think they're just and so people are asking me, okay, so why are you working in Adobe XD before you get into Storyline? And so this is part of the reason. There's assets in here that are just easier to create in here than they would be in Storyline, and then I'll export them as PNGs and recreate them in Storyline. But that's obviously just one reason. It's easier to work across screens in Adobe XD, so it saves you a lot of time and fiddling around on what your design is going to look like, and it also allows you to test with users so you can do like a quick prototype, which is super helpful. It saves me a ton of time in the long run, and then also it allows me to create way better products because I'm able to iterate on it and I'm able to actually test it with users before I go into development. So those are just a few of the reasons that I do this. So I'm looking at that and it's starting to look pretty good. Another thing that's a good tip for folks to have is anywhere that you're going to have copy or writing, it's good to have that copy or writing ahead of time, and you want it to be as realistic as possible. In the design community, it's a little bit frowned upon to use lorem ipsum, which is like placeholder text, because it's not realistic to what's actually going to be in those fields. And it's also really hard to know what the design is going to look like and how it's going to function unless you know how much text is even going to be in there. So it's always best practice to put some dummy text that's going to be as close to what you think it might be in design in general. So I've just got this figured out so far. I'll probably change colors and whatnot later, and I might make this a little bit smaller because we want to have pictures inside. I'm just going to start to put more of this here, then move this. So I'm gonna have a picture. Oh, I don't want that. I'm gonna have a picture probably in here that represents something about the game or is the logo for the game or something like that. And up here, I have it placed kind of in the middle of this rectangle. But what I'm thinking is I may have some of these objects overlap at the top because that will give us more space to work with for text. And then another thing I might consider, because we're going to have buttons for going to the next, going back and next, is to put button right here. But then it doesn't really show like that there's more. So this is a trick I like to use in Storyline where I have something going off the page. Like it just visually looks like it's going off the page. So you can kind of see right here that there is more, but they're going to be two completely separate slides. So it's kind of tricking the eye. And then obviously like may change this. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. And because there's not going to be a button going back, we're just going to keep going all the way to the right. And then when you hit the end, you'll be able to go all the way to the left. So we'll see kind of like a mirrored image of this. And I'm also trying this out. Sometimes when I design, what I'll do is put colors and things in the beginning, but also I've just realized, it's best practice just to get things laid out and make sense before you do that. So another thing I'm going to do is I want there to be a button for people to start. Actually, oh gosh, you know what? I got ahead of myself. So what I want to do here is, goodness me, I'll duplicate this and save this for another iteration, but for this one, this is the main screen, so I'm getting ahead of myself with this piece. So we're gonna act like this is the main screen here, and then once you get into this, you're gonna see this mode. So let's get rid of some of this here. Always getting ahead of myself on stuff. And this is gonna be the randomize button, and then that's gonna be the avatar. Or rather, maybe we put the avatar up here. Well, we can play around with it. That's the great thing about working in here. It's just really easy to do. So let's have this. And then I like to have my buttons be like really like the radius be like really rounded or like really square usually, or just like a little bit rounded. And I'm gonna do really rounded for these. And then the text is gonna go in here, and I'm gonna probably break a cardinal rule of I don't know what I don't have the text planned, so I should have it planned. But the great thing also about Adobe XD is that you can just put in lorem ipsum. And so I have the text box selected, and then I can say fill with placeholder text. It's gonna go. And if you can have it however big your box is here, so I may change this and just put it, and there's a shortcut, but I don't know the shortcut, so that's my bad. I don't even know that's what font sizes I want or anything. Ooh, no thank you. Okay. Wonder, so I haven't played around with this a lot either, so it's quite interesting. Oh, that's great. Okay. So we'll just pretend that all of this is working. And I am a sucker for everything being aligned.